What's up, basketball coaches, players, and fans? Welcome back to the Pass First podcast, where we share our knowledge of the game. My name is Augie Johnston, and I'm here with my partner, Alex Engel. And we hope you're able to take something away from today's episode that will help you in your basketball journey. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe, or maybe you're listening on iTunes or Spotify. You can follow us on there as well. Today, we have a really good episode because we're going to be talking about physicality. We're going to be talking about what it means to be physical, how to get physical, how to make your players more physical. And that's all in today's episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, you guys, as promised, let's talk about playing physical so that we can help our players play physical and really kind of drill down on what it all means. So let's go ahead and start this off, Alex. What does it mean to you, I guess, to play physical?
Yeah, I know some people are probably listening and thinking like, well, that seems pretty basic, right? You're gonna be banging into the other person, right? That's physical, and maybe that's true to an extent. But I think for me, physical play is someone who, yes, you can create contact with the other person. You're constantly in their space. You're willing to get into the other player's space on the other team and disrupt them. But you can do it without necessarily getting yourself into a lot of foul trouble. I think you're willing to sacrifice your body, I would say, is physical play, like taking charges, diving on the floor for a loose ball could be physical play. Just all those things kind of together, I think, create what you would call more physical play. Boxing out, something else that popped into my mind, hitting someone hard on a box out. So all those are little details of physical play in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And as you were speaking, I was trying to think, well, what could be a definition of playing physical? And so something that just kind of popped into my mind was, using your body to gain an advantage. I think that could be a decent definition. Using your body instead of using your IQ or actually physically using your body to gain an advantage over the defense, kind of to me sums it up. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a good way because if you're thinking of IQ, you're thinking of maybe like, smart passes or smart reads on one end or the other. Skill set, you're thinking of, your ability to dribble the ball or again, I guess pass it or shoot it to score. But physical play could be, like you said, you get around somebody and you use your body to like, bump them off on a jump stop, boom, land on 2 feet and score. Not although that seems simple, a lot of people can't do that. When they get bumped, they get off their line or they have to kind of throw the ball up in an awkward way. So to me, that's physical play, and it gives you an advantage in a different way than IQ or skill set does.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of like in the football world, like you got some players that love to hit, and there's always a couple players that don't want to get hit or hate getting
Mm-hmm.
hit, and those physical players, and it's the same in basketball, right? You have players that are more physical, like naturally or whatever. They like to get hit, they play physical, and then you have the total opposite of the players that don't do it. And so I guess today, hopefully, we can drill down some ideas on how to get all players to play physical because it's huge. It's a huge advantage. Okay, so let's talk about benefits then. So, what are some of the benefits of playing physical? We probably talked about a couple already, but
Yeah, I think certain aspects of the game you really cannot be elite at unless you are a physical player. Like for example, rebounding. Yeah, sure. If you're 7 foot and you got a 40-inch vert, I guess you can go up and just grab the rebound. You don't have to be super physical with it. But for 99.9% of people, that's not the case, right? So you've got to be able to hit somebody and keep them out of the paint. If you do that, not only are you more likely to get the ball, but the offense is going to get tired of crashing. If you're constantly getting boxed out every play, like eventually it's kind of a natural thing. People are just gonna be like, all right, I'm not even gonna go for the rebound because I know I'm gonna get clobbered every time I go in there. Defensively, same thing. If you're like picking up all on ball full court, if you're a pest and you can get on their hip and you can kind of turn them and get their hand in there and you're slapping at them. I mean, no, I guess that's a little risky. You could get called for a foul, but it's difficult if all game someone's just kind of beating at you, slapping on your arm or slapping near it, and you're worried about controlling the ball, or getting up and chesting up on you the whole time. That type of physical play, I think, gives you a huge advantage. And I don't think you can be elite at those positions unless you do that. Some other advantages, I kind of mentioned one earlier, using your body on offense. A lot of people don't think about that, but physical play on offense, whether it comes to dribbling the ball and creating space off somebody or without the ball, like being able to V-step or V-cut or any type of cut and like put your forearm in someone's chest, right? And just boom, kind of get that little half push off that you really sometimes can do and sometimes you can't get away with it, but a lot of times you can. you create more space, so it's going to give you an advantage as opposed to just, okay, I'm standing here, I'm just going to run around the screen. Well, a lot of times a good defender will stick with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree too. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits, I think, to playing physical as well as far as, maybe overachieving. Like you might be not a great team as far as, I don't know, athletically fast, all that kind of stuff. But if you play physical and you set the hard screens and you do, like you said, all the boxing out and, I don't know, taking charges and all the other physical things, then you can actually beat a team that's better than you. So that would be a benefit that I would say that, no matter what team you are, if you can get your team to play more physical, then you're going to be a better team. So I guess there's a benefit there. So, okay.
I was gonna.
Oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna add one other thing. I was gonna say. I think there's also an intimidation factor to it a little bit, right? Like when you're playing,
Yeah.
when you go in and you're like, oh man, we're playing such and such team, and they're just tough. Like they hit hard, they set screens, they even do some of the little quote unquote dirty things that you don't like playing against. Like there's an intimidation factor and a little bit of fear factor for some teams that you can create if you play that way as well.
Yeah, totally agree with that as well. So, where are the opportunities to play physical? And let's just talk about defense, then we'll talk about offense. So on defense, like you mentioned a few already, but where are some other opportunities maybe?
So I know I mentioned what I said, rebounding. I said if you're playing on ball. I know one that I was taught, and I don't know if it's legal everywhere, but have you ever heard the term like chugging the cutter
Mm-hmm.
or checking the cutter? I've heard different terms on that. So if you're playing help side and the cutter comes through, I was always taught like you don't let them come through. Like you put a forearm through their chest and you hold them and that's it, and you just push them out. Now I know that technically you're not allowed to do that, but it's very rarely, at least it used to be very rarely, that you would get called for that. And that was like a technique that was taught. Like all my college coaches taught me that. So that's, I think, an opportunity, if you do that, and yeah, maybe you get called for a foul here or there, but if you can keep cutters out the lane all game and only get 1 or 2 fouls, like that's a huge advantage that you can get because you can keep it, you want to keep the lane kind of cluttered up and not free for them to move. So that's another area. Trying to think of some other ones. I think we've mentioned like taking a charge. I guess that's physical play as well, right? Being able to take a charge. Yeah. Are there any other ones that popped into your head? We covered a couple before, so.
I think like just using your chest, maybe like post play, post defense, right? So there's, I think, ways to be physical down there. What I like to teach is to use the arm bar, but when they put it down on the ground to dribble, I like to teach to wall up and use your chest and like put your chest on them and try to go straight up. So I guess that's being physical. Also, the only other thing that I could think about that you didn't mention might have been like fighting through screens.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I feel like a coach at some point taught me, and I don't think this is not legal, and I probably wouldn't even teach this ever, but maybe it works. I don't know. But like when you fight through a screen to blast like the outside shoulder, and I don't know, that's one way to fight through a screen. I teach it differently. I just teach to get skinny and try to push the other guy. But I guess that's being physical, like just fighting through screens. I don't know. Anything? Can you think of anything else?
Well, when you said that, that made me think. Was that when you're talking about fighting through? Are you talking about on ball or off ball screens, or both?
Oh, in my head, I was thinking off ball, but I guess on ball
Okay.
too. You're right. Yeah.
So on ball screens, what I always taught was if especially if you're guarding the ball, obviously it's on ball. You're guarding the ball handler as they come off to like beat them to that point, or try to beat them to that point on the edge, and then try and push them up so that they can't use the screen. Because a good guard is going to try and get you below the screen so that when they come off shoulder to shoulder, if they do it correctly and they do go shoulder to shoulder, there's no room for you to get there. So I was taught sometimes to, as they're about to come off the screen, you want to push up and like, again, chest up and like bump them up a little bit. Because even if you just create this much room, it's enough for you to get by, and they can't really get a good read on or a good look off of that screen. So that was just something else that I thought of. That's some physical play there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. I think I'm going to start teaching that. You're talking about if before they get to a level of the ball, you kind of cheat up so that you can get over. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's physical. I mean, and also just guarding on ball. Here's another little tip that is not legal either, but I actually do see coaches teaching. I've never specifically made it a point, but I've been thinking about it is when you're playing on ball D, and you have one hand up, right, kind of in the passing lane, you're sliding, and then that other hand you got hooked around their hip, kind of like, that low hand.
Mm-hmm.
You're like technically you're holding them in a way, but have you ever seen that being taught anywhere? Or is that
I haven't
something you
seen
teach?
I haven't seen it being taught, but I'm not gonna lie and tell you that I did never use that.
Hey,
Oh,
no,
I
that
all the
works.
time, dude, all the time. Yeah,
Yeah, that works. And it's I want to say that they don't really call that.
very
Maybe,
rarely.
yeah, pretty rarely. And I can even remember like a men's league game that we played in, and Rage was guarding me the whole time and was locking me up, and he was doing that to me, and I was just like, God, it's a foul. I remember yelling at Vince, but it's not a foul, you know?
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things where if you like extend your arm out, really far, or you like grab, then yeah,
Yeah,
it's more likely a foul. Um, but a lot of the times, first of all, it's hard to see because if you're like this, one arm out and the other one's down, like it kind of looks like you're almost like holding your own chest, but you're really like kind of pushing it out, to hold them a little bit. Um, yeah, those ones are tough, and there's a lot of like techniques that we talked about just now where we were like, well, I don't know if this is actually legal or not, and I think that kind of defines physical play to an extent, right? Like
hmm,
basketball is really I know nowadays it's changed, but basketball is really created to be a non-contact sport, right? Like or a minimal contact sport, and it has changed. It is very much a contact sport now, but the rules don't always support that like they do, but a lot of them are kind of like a gray area, right? Like it kind of depends on how much contact you have. So I do kind of like teaching my kids some of those little techniques that may or may not be a foul, but I want them to also know how to guard regularly without it. Because if you get a ref who's like really teeing off on that, well, you're not going to be able to play defense. So you've got to be able to play the regular way as well. But if you have a ref that's not calling that stuff, it can be a huge advantage for you. And so I think it's something that you should at least know and understand it and be able to be like, okay, hey, this game that's not working, we got to switch it up. Or, oh, most probably 90% of the time refs aren't calling this, so I can do it and get an advantage.
yeah, yeah. There's the game is changing, and I remember, oh, the emphasis this year for referees is hand checking,
Hmm.
and then they're not calling that hook though. Like, but they'll call hand checks or whatever. But yeah, they do try to clean that up, right? Those
Yeah.
those physicality things. So
And
okay,
every year they have an emphasis too. Like every year they have
yeah.
some different type of emphasis that they're going
As long as they don't emphasize traveling, I'm good. Because
after.
travel calls drive me crazy. Because nothing against the refs or anything, but like some of them don't watch enough basketball to understand that you can Euro step. You know what I mean? Like, so if you get called for,
Oh,
and some kids do travel on their Euro step, but like, I mean, you probably got a story better than mine, but
man, last year playoffs, CIF playoffs. Okay, we're down two. My freshman gets at the rebound, dribbling down court. You know who I'm talking about too, uh, and does this beautiful 1-2 like gather, like Dwayne Wade gather, right? Perfect. She goes up. I mean, she ends up missing, but got kind of like fouled as she did it, and they call a travel on her. And like I went ballistic. It was like 10 seconds left in the game, right? And I went ballistic, and I was like, afterwards I went and watched the film, and it was just a perfect move. But it was one of those things where one, they maybe didn't know that that was legal, and two, to be honest, in the women's game, I didn't have not seen that a whole lot, like at the high school level, especially higher levels. Yeah, but at least around here, and I don't want a blanket statement, but around here, I definitely didn't see many girls making that move. And I think it was like they were shocked because I've seen boys make that same move and not get called for travel. And so she made this move and blew the whistle, and it was just like such a bad call. And who knows, maybe she missed the shot, but like 10 seconds left of the game, down by two, you have a chance to score, you don't even get the opportunity. Like that's infuriating, especially for a CIF playoff game.
yeah,
So
that's a tough pill to swallow.
it was, but
Okay. So I think we drilled defense. Let's talk a little about like the opportunities to play physical on offense, because maybe there's some coaches that are listening to this right now and they're like, yeah, I want my players to play physical, but when they go into practice, they never mention it or never talk about it. So how can we give them some tips to help them with their teams play more physical on offense?
so I mean, the first and foremost I would think is setting hard screens. That's a huge one. I think if you can set hard screens on offense, you're more likely to get your teammates open, right? Um, Teaching your kids how to run their players off of hard screens, how to obviously that shoulder to shoulder that we talked about. I guess that's more technique than physicality, but just being able to use that. I think getting open on cuts, that's something I really see kids struggle with, is like the defender gets in you and most players become passive. Like they really just kind of, they sit there, they do that like little two-step dance back and forth and they don't actually get open. And teaching an offensive player, like just step right between their legs, put your arm in their chest, and you don't have to push off, but you can kind of use your weight, and kind of shimmy off of them and pop out and get the ball. And like Or I know another thing is, you got the defender that keeps their arm all over you, right? Their hands on you. They're kind of like tapping and touching when you're in the triple threat. That strong rip, like rip through. I used to always, what I was told, and again, I probably nowadays you're not allowed to say this, but I was always told like break their wrist, like literally just break their wrist. Like they're gonna stop if you put your elbow through their wrist. Like they're gonna stop grabbing you and tapping you and doing all that. So, that's another way. Um, some other ways to play physical. I think I mentioned it earlier, but like if you get someone on your hip, that jump stop where you kind of bang into them, and you can bump them off you and go score the basket. Yeah, those are three of them that just popped into my head right now.
Yeah, and I think all those, right, you can definitely teach that stuff, right? It's a great idea to get a bag out, and have the kid drive to the basket, jump stop into you, bump you off, and make a layup. The only other one I thought of, and I thought of it first because this has like been a huge emphasis for our team this year, and it's looking good, man. You might want to, I mean, you probably teach it in some way too, but the emphasis that we're putting on it, I think is going to pay off. And that's our post player sealing like every time. So like his number one job, rim runner, you rim run and then you seal your guy. And it's the same thing as like you explained getting open, right? It's the arm in the chest, hard seal. And then from there, we have this like a little, different positions that post player can go. So let's say they're going short corner or from underneath the basket, then they go to the block, and it's the block, and then you're right back banging on them there. And then if you don't get it there, then you pop out short corner, and then you're banging on them there. And that's like I think that's a good thing to work on, because number one, it's going to help you get the ball in the post a lot more. Like, and that, I think every coach gets frustrated with their players that never look inside, because, it's hard. It's hard to look inside as a guard. You're trying to run the offense. You're worried about being guarded. Anyways. So it's going to get you the ball in the post more, and it's going to get you just better position, I think, when you do get those catches in the post. Yeah. Other than that, I can't think of too many other ways. You said in the finishing, setting the screens, getting open.
I mean, maybe handling the ball, like I actually, one that popped in is same thing when that arm is on you. And it's now, I know I talked about triple threat, right? Ripping through, but the other one, like point guard, guy, hand on your hip, that swipe down, the chop, right? Chop onto the hand to get their hand off your hip. Or even just kind of the slap away or whatever it is. Some I actually didn't learn until I was in college. But again, just another little technique that it's a physical play, and it helps you from being controlled by the defender, and also makes it more likely for them to put their hands on you. It is a thing. If you keep getting your hands smacked away, eventually at some point you're gonna get tired of it. So
Yeah, no,
I'd
that's
say
a
that's
good
another
one.
one.
And I even think that the point guard just backing his guy, being physical. Like if you're being guarded, you can be physical back,
Mm-hmm.
to a physical or a defender that's all over you. As a matter of fact, that's what you have to do, otherwise, or go by him. Otherwise, you're putting the ball over your head or something. Uh, I had another one popped in my mind, and then I just lost it when I was saying right there. But last one, and this is one that I'm surprised we overlooked, but offensive rebounding.
Mm.
So offensive rebounding, I guess that's part of offense. Yeah, you can be
Yeah.
physical there. And I mean, a team that sends forward to the glass and they're physically going to the glass every time is huge advantage. So, yeah.
Yeah. Crashing hard, pinning the defensive team in. I think, yeah, you're right.
Okay, let's keep this moving. So, what are, I guess, we talked about the benefits of playing physical and ultimately makes you a better team. But what are some of the negative aspects of playing physical?
So I think the first one that I would think of is definitely foul trouble, right? You have players that they want to play physical, but they don't really know what that means, and they think. I know we did an episode on like toughness, right? And they equate like beating the crap out of someone with physicality and toughness, and you have to understand that there is a fine line there. And if you get into foul trouble every game, and you foul out every game, or you're in foul trouble the whole game all the time, like it becomes a disadvantage. So you have to watch how physical you play. And it also depends on the refs, right? Some refs are going to let you play more physical than others. But I would say that's a risk for sure. Second thing there is if you start playing physical and the other team starts getting back into it, I guess maybe there's more of a chance of like getting into altercations with the other team, right? Which some people would say that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but it is a risk, and you never know. Someone gets in a fight, gets ejected from the game. All of a sudden now it could be a difference maker for your team. So just something else, I guess, that kind of reels or ties into that. You can't be too physical because you get into foul trouble. Same idea. So yeah, I would say those two things are probably the ones that come to mind. I'm trying to think if there are any other real weaknesses or negatives. Is there anything you can think of?
Nope, I don't think there really is too many negatives. That's why we're making an episode about it, right? Because this is
Mhm.
what we recommend that you guys do out there is try to get your teams to play more physical. The only other thing I could think of would be to say injuries, maybe. I mean, you might catch some elbows or something. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I mean, essentially, you want to play physical, right? I think everybody knows that. Let's
right.
keep going. Okay. So how do you get your players to play physical then? And this is going to be another tough question to answer, but like, I guess we'll talk about maybe some drills next, but is there any other tips that we can think of?
Well, I think some of being physically tough has to do with mental toughness as well. Like I think it's tied together, right? So I think teaching your kids to be mentally tough and trying to work with them, I guess, on their own mental toughness, and that can be as simple as not letting them quit, like making them push through things. And I know some, you're listening and you're like, well, how is that really related to physical toughness and or playing physical? And I think if you can get yourself to be mentally tough and to be able to, like I said, just push through, not worry about little bit of pain, not worry about having to do extra work, like those types of things. I think you're more likely to see that type of a player translate it to physical toughness than a kid who's going to quit all the time or oh this is too hard for me. Like you're never going to get a kid like that to play physically tough in my opinion. I think it's going to be hard. So I would say definitely working on the mental side of the game. I know I don't want to say too much because we're going to talk about drills here in a second, but that's one of the areas I would probably mark down as a necessity for playing physical.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree too, and I think that it goes with everything, right? If you want your team to rebound better, it's all about emphasis, right? If you just like I said, we're really emphasizing this year that post seal, and it's actually working because we're just emphasizing it. Like you can't emphasize everything, and maybe that's kind of the science or the trick behind coaching. But whatever you think is best for your team, if you emphasize it, I think it'll work. And I think it could be like a culture thing too, a little bit as far as playing physical. If you talk about it a lot and if you drill it a lot, then you're going to play physical. It's like rebounding, right? Like all my players know how to rebound and box out. Like why do we ever need to do another box out drill? We don't. They know how. But do they actually rebound and box out? Not well enough yet. So you do those drills, I think, just for the emphasis and then the yeah, and just to make sure it's top of mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I mean, realistically, by high school, especially at the varsity level, like most kids know all of the basics. Like not everybody, I know, I understand, not everyone, but most kids know the basics. But knowing something and like mastering it are two different things. And I think that's where you get your kid and like, why are we doing this? I know how to box out. It's like, okay, well, let's go take a look at some film. Do you box out every time? No, you box out 10% of the time. So yeah, you know what that means. You can describe it to me. You can show it to me. You might even be able to do it in a drill. But when we get into a game, it's not mastered. It's not second nature. The ball goes up and you don't think I needed to smash into somebody and protect the paint. You still ball watch or you chase the ball. And I think that's a main difference in why we emphasize that stuff so much and why you got to drill the same thing a lot. Like one thing I've realized as a coach is you do mix things up, and I get it because things can become stale if you don't. But realistically, like you're kind of doing the same core concepts just over and over and over again in different ways every day. Like at least I think you should be, because if you just spread yourself and you do like all these different things all the time, you never actually master anything. You're just like, you can kind of do a little bit of everything, but I don't think in a game it pays off. I'd rather have like a few, a handful of stuff really mastered and then try and fit in whatever else I can than just be like, oh, we did one of everything, but we don't actually really know how to do anything really well.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip right there. I think that's probably the key to being a good coach, right? But just choosing the right things. Definitely something I think we all need to hear too. That to yeah, work on mastering that defensive rotation, mastering your offense. Definitely, like everyone knows the group that grows up since third grade running the same offense, and it's the high school system, and and they're eventually seniors. Like those are the best teams. Those
Hmm.
are, and it's because they just mastered that offense. So okay, let's talk a little bit about drills. Okay, drills. So we're talking about physical play. What's the first drill, I guess, that comes to mind that a coach could use for to help promote physical play?
Um, so a couple. First one, that's tough. The first one was in my head. I was thinking like a rebounding drill. But I know we've talked about a couple of these drills in the past, so I kind of want to do something different. Um, a new one that I've put in recently is it's called a circle trap drill. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but basically, you get your teams in a circle. You have four people on each team, and let's say one team is blue, one's white, and you put in like white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, all the way around the circle, right? So it's all alternating. And then the coach throws the ball to one person or the other, like whatever team it is they throw to, and the two nearest people. So let's say I throw it to you and you're on blue. The two nearest people are next to you are both going to be white, and they immediately come and trap you. And the other three defenders have to guard, or the other two defenders, I'm sorry, have to guard the other three players. So you're constantly being trapped, and like they're supposed to be pressuring you and bumping you, and you have to be strong with the ball and like ripping through and trying to pass the ball around. And it's almost like a monkey in the middle, kind of, but it's like a team monkey in the middle. And then once the other team gets it, the drill's dead. You get back into a circle. Coach comes back and throws it again. And it's just a way. I think it's great physical drill for both sides. One, on defense, you're working on being physical and trapping and being aggressive. On offense, you're getting trapped constantly, and it's in a small area, so you have to work to be strong with the ball and not turn it over. So that's a drill that I've implemented recently that I really like. Is that the one that you were thinking of when I was talking about it?
Yeah, I've seen that drill before. I've never actually done it though before.
Yeah.
And like my question is, the way I saw it, they'd actually use and I don't know if it was four players or less, but they actually use the circle. Do you actually use the circle like a half court?
Oh, I have. I don't always. I've used it at like the free throw line as well. But yeah,
Is that a big enough
same idea.
circle? In my head, it seems
So the
like
circle
first.
moves. The circle moves. Like as you
Oh,
start it here, and then eventually, like naturally, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger,
yeah.
and eventually it gets so big that you just kill it. But you'll get like a bunch of passes in before you get to that level. So yeah, unfortunately
Cool.
it's not like a physical barrier. That'd be nice. You had like a little like wall that they couldn't move from. That'd be perfect. But no, it moves out a little bit.
Yeah, because I think the one that I saw that was on the circle, I was just, like I said, I'd never done it, but I just wondered, I was like, is that enough space to even like
Hmm.
get a pass in? And
Right.
you're saying it is, so that's pretty interesting. Because it seems like the defense could cover that, but
Yeah, I
it,
mean it's probably bigger. Like you said, the center circle, like where talking about the jump ball circle. We go a little bigger than that. We don't stay
gotcha.
just in that. Yeah, it's not that tiny of a circle. We go bigger than that. But it's not a huge circle because if it's such a large space, then you're just on skip passes the whole time, and that's not the point.
Yeah, that's a cool drill. And yeah, I could see how that would definitely help with some physicality as far as offensively and defensively. And I like drills like that too, because I mean, you can run your press break 5-on-5, you can run, as much as you want, but like that really breaks it down as far as trapping and as far as, being able to pass out of the trap. So,
Hmm.
okay. Let me go ahead and try to think of it, throw a drill out there for physical play. Here's one that's, pretty physical. I got two actually, but the first one is you take like a small area and it's a square. So you can do however you want in your court, but it's a pretty small. I would say it's like maybe no more than 15 by 15 feet. And then you have a coach with a rack of balls. It's 3-on-3 and they're in the square and it's a screening drill. So the coach starts with the ball, he hands it to a player and you get a point for every pass. And so those two players go and screen for each other, or one screens for each other. They get open. If you make a pass right there, that's one. It's 30 seconds. The defense, it's pretty easy for them to knock it out. And that's all they're trying to do is just knock the ball out on steals and stuff. Every time they knock it out, everyone just turns to the coach. Coach throws the next ball in, and they got it screen and make passes. That's a very physical drill. I like it, but and I ran that in college, and I've done it maybe once or twice as a coach, but to me, it just wasn't game specific enough. And I always try to, maybe um, that's something I should revisit this week as just like hey, emphasis drill, right? Just here's the emphasis drill. Our screens are weak, but that's one. Have you ever seen that one?
I haven't actually. I don't think I've seen that one before.
Yeah, that was from when I was a grad assistant at Monterey. I'd never seen it either. I've never seen it since either. But that's one. Here's another good one. It's 3-on-3 in the paint where you have players on both blocks and then one guy at the free throw line. And it's a defensive drill to work on guarding cross screens, so those block to block screens. And so you can teach out whatever technique you want to teach on how to guard cross screens. And so that's good. It's physical because you're setting a lot of cross screens, and you have a player on each wing, and they're just passers. And so whatever side the ball's on, remember, players on each wing, and then kind of like a triangle, block, block, free throw line. It's 3-on-3. Whatever side the ball is, they cross screen, and then the other guy screens down from the free throw line. And then that guy comes off, and the coach can throw it wherever he wants. And then it turns into like a rebounding drill. Once it goes in, they have 5 seconds to score. It's 1-on-1, 5, 4, 3, 2, a shot, box out, rebound, and they have to throw an outlet to one of the guards out there. So that's another good one. But yeah, you got any others?
Let's see, some other physical drills. Trying to think of some besides the rebounding ones that we did earlier. I know, well, here's a couple that, I mean, they are definitely physical, but it's very specified. Like we had one that we used to do a loose ball drill where you take the ball and you, like, the line follows you and you just like roll the ball out as a coach slowly, and one person has to go and dive on the ball, right, and get it and pick it up, and then they run to the back of the line, and the next person catches up, you roll it out, they run, dive on the ball, run to the back of the line. So you got guys diving all over the floor, right, to get the ball. I've also seen one where two guys are on the baseline, like under, on each side of the free throw lane line, right, at the very corner, and you're in the middle as the coach, and they're like head to head against each other, and you roll the ball out and you let it roll, and you say, they have to wait, and then you say go, and then they have to both dive for the ball. But that one is one where you got to be careful, you get injured. That's like a real old school one.
Yeah,
but I've done that one before.
Nice.
Charge drills, just taking charges, standing there, boom, team's got to run you over, charge drill. We used to do actually at Cuesta where if you missed a charge, you had to do a charge drill by yourself. The whole team had to run you over.
Oh, wow. Emphasis, man. Emphasis.
Yeah. And so it's just like, dude, you don't want to miss a charge because you got 15 guys just coming to, run you over afterwards. But
I love that stuff, man. I feel like that's part of stuff that's like the trick to coaching, is having those little things that make the players actually do it. Because like we said earlier, like the boxing down stuff, like they know how to do it, but they don't do it until you put that emphasis on it. So even like the diving on the ground one, right? You do that like one time or two times a year, like it's going to increase the amount of people that will dive on a loose ball.
Yeah. And well, I'll tell you this happened to me last week at practice. I was talking about diving on we're doing the, you've probably seen it, the 4 in the hole drill where you're like, you stand, slap the floor, or foot fire, your feet going, then you got to close out and you got to retreat back. And there's variations of it, but it's a very pretty common drill. Yeah. So we're doing it. So I'm explaining the drill as we're going through it. I'm like, okay, now if I say loose ball, you got to dive on the floor, right? And like 3 of the girls are like, all right. And one of the girls is like, oh, what? Like we got to dive on the floor, like kind of like being kind of a wimp about it, right? So I blow the whistle, we get going. I'm like, all right, dive on the floor. And she does this like just terror, like doesn't even dive, like kind of like crawls down to the floor. And I was kind of irritated. I'm like, what are you doing? So I do it again, same thing. And so finally I stopped it. And there was a girl standing next to me on offense. I was like, here's the ball. I was like, here, hold this ball. It's like, when I tell you to roll the ball out, and like all their eyes got wide, like they couldn't believe I was really going to like do this. They thought I was going to fake it. Like, roll the ball. She rolls the ball out, like dove on the floor, get the ball, like, land on, get up, throw it to her. And they all looked at me and they were like, oh, like they couldn't believe it. They were so surprised. And I was like, it doesn't hurt. Like, just dive on the floor. Like, you're going to get boo-boos. You're going to get little bang ups. Like, it's part of basketball, but you've got to do it because 1, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it in the game. And 2, there are techniques to this. Like, you don't want to dive into the air and then land on the ground. You want to stay low, and be low. And so when you dive, you're only falling like that far. And they just couldn't believe it. But then once they saw me do it, all of a sudden we're in the drill. Now they're just like, whoom, they're diving on the floor and they're doing, because they saw that, oh, I'm willing to do it, or, oh, there's a reason that coach is doing this. And now, like you said, it's that emphasis. They're willing to buy in. And I think another thing to add to that is what I liked about that charge drill is coach could have easily just said, oh, you missed a charge, let's just run. Right. And I'm trying to get away from that. I don't really do that a whole lot. I never really did, because I don't like using running as punishment, because I don't think you learn anything when you do that. Like, it just teaches you to fear running, in my opinion. And I think you can still emphasize stuff without having it to be a run. Like, you can be like, oh, charge drill. It's still difficult. It's really something you don't want to do. So you'd rather just take the charge in the game. And then if we don't, well, now we're at least working on a skill instead of just wasting 2 minutes just running around, which I guess it gets you in shape. but you're really not trying to emphasize getting in shape at that point. You're trying to emphasize to do things right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, those are all good things. I love it. And this whole conversation that we just had at the end here reminds me of a conversation I had with my high school coach the other day, Coach Tamler. I just asked him, I was like, hey, any advice? I know we're small this year on rebounding. And he's like, yeah, just initiate the rebounding incentive program. It's like just this little like thing that just like puts, it's like a little system like, oh, if you take a charge, it's 3 points, it's +3 for you. If you lose a rebound, it's -2, stuff like that. And it's just that emphasis. It's going to emphasize it, we don't need to do it. It's going to probably help more than any drill is going to help us, just by doing something small like that. So,
yeah. And you know what you'll probably see is someone's going to take a charge in the game and someone on the bench is going to be like, that's 3 points, like seriously, they'll get like into it, so that's actually a good idea. I might have to steal some of that and do that myself.
Yeah. Unfortunately though, the penalty is running,
but
hey, you could change it, right? You could make the penalty. I mean, I could easily say, okay, for every, point we lose by on the rebounding battle, we have to do some rebounding drill, right? So maybe that's the solution.
Yeah, maybe. And again, I don't want to make it seem like never run the kids or anything. I think there is a thing to that. I guess I never was a fan of like I do penalty running when they compete against each other, right? Like, okay, you lost the game, you run, right? Or we're just doing conditioning, you run. That's fine. I have no problems with that. I didn't like, oh, we're trying to run something and you're messing up. And so instead of, for me, I'd rather just be like, no, we're just going to keep doing this until you get it right. And a lot of coaches are just like, oh, just get on the baseline and run. And I'm like, does that really refocus them? Like maybe some of them do. But in a lot of cases, I feel like it drives more like fear into them. And I've seen times where kids get like more shaky because now they're like so afraid of running again, and it's like, I don't know. I've ran a ton. I didn't mind it. I was always one of those people that I could run and be fine because I stayed in good shape. But at the time I was sitting there kind of like, okay, is this really making our team better? Or am I just having to run because Johnny can't seem to make a layup? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's better ways you can use your time.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think the running thing, when the team is messing around, that's a time, like when they're just not taking it serious, they're BSing, kicking the ball, just whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think all coaches nowadays are kind of on that same page. It's a little old school to like be like, oh, you ran the play wrong, everybody on the baseline,
Right. Yeah. But that's how it used to be, and it's probably a good change that's not happening. But I agree that if they're messing around, they're not taking it serious, that's a different story. They kind of deserve it. They need to get put back into their, good frame of mind to work.
Yeah, totally agree. All right. Well, I think we covered everything we wanted to cover in this episode. And that's all we got for this week, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you like today's episode and you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes or maybe Spotify or somewhere else, you can subscribe there as well. We come out with a new episode once a week. We hope to see you guys in the next one.
Peace.